What's going on, everyone? So today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Path of the Wild Soul, Unearthed Arcana, that came out not too long ago. Now, I know it's been out for a little while, but I want to kind of dive in here because there are some interesting things that go on within this Wild Soul Barbarian that I can give you guys experience as a Dungeon Master myself, dealing with it and working with a player character who is using this Path of the Wild Soul. It's a very tricky one to manage as a Dungeon Master and as a player because it will impact the rest of your party. So we want to keep that in mind as we're moving forward with this, but also the simple fact that a lot of the really cool flavor text within this Path of the Wild Soul are really awesome, and just the different abilities they get are going to be really cool. So without further ado, let's dive in. What's going on, everyone? My name is Howie. This is the Blue Collar DM YouTube channel, the channel dedicated to breaking down those barriers for new players and Dungeon Masters alike. I actually stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday on Twitch. Link for that Twitch stream down in the description below. We actually talk about Dungeon Master prep, D&D, player character creation, all kinds of other different concepts, world building, how to utilize virtual tabletops, especially because that's a hot button topic right now, seeing as we're all still kind of in quarantine, slowly kind of interacting and getting back into our play groups. But again, link for that is going to be down in the description below. I will actually not be streaming tonight when this video comes out because it is my anniversary, so hooray for me. But I will be back on Friday for sure, so make sure you check that out. Again, like I said, link down in the description below. So when we're talking about the Path of the Wild Soul, we got a lot of interesting kind of dynamics, and I actually want to jump over to the computer because I actually have the D&D Beyond breakdown of it actually up here, so let's jump over there. And as we can see here, this is again playtest content. Always make sure we know that it is playtest content. Does not mean it is gospel as far as the D&D multiverse is concerned. So the really cool thing about the Path of the Wild Soul is that a lot of the magic that they're going to get is actually going to be coming from this kind of wild magic surge that they're getting from the Feywild. As they were exposed to this, whether it be, and you can find a really cool RP way, backstory to kind of make that kind of fit into your playstyle, or you can actually play around with the idea of that maybe it's not the Feywild, maybe it's a different realm or something like that. Anything that'll kind of work to give you that kind of rich flavor of why this barbarian would have just some random magical effects. So they're going to get a lot of interesting abilities going forward with this Path of the Wild Soul. So one of the things they're going to get is Lingering Magic, which is going to give them Detect Magic, and they're going to be able to use it without a spell slot or components. Constitution is going to be their spellcasting ability. It doesn't really, I mean, it's Detect Magic. It detects magic. I mean, we don't really need to say more. But then also we're going to get this Wild Surge. So the Wild Surge is one of the biggest features of the Wild Soul Barbarian, which a lot of the other barbarians also get at level 3. If we even jump up to the Path of the Berserker, for example, the big piece that they get is that Frenzied Rage that allows them to make extra melee attacks as a bonus action on their turns. But if we jump back down to this Wild Soul, they're going to get this very interesting feature, like we said, the Wild Surge. And what's going to happen is when we rage, we're going to roll a d8, and it's going to be interesting. So we're going to roll a d8, and we're going to see what happens with our wild magic surge that's going to come from our rage. There are a lot of different effects that come in here, and the randomness is really interesting. However, I have some issues with this one, and you can at me, let's talk in the comment section about why that. See if you agree with me, disagree with me. Let's talk and have a good debate and discussion. But I have some issues with this. Not because of the fact that we're rolling on a table. That I'm fine with that. I'm fine rolling on a table, having random effects that are really cool. The problem I have is that a number of these effects that occur, if they are negative for the party or in general, they're only negative for the party. They're not really negative for the actual barbarian himself, and you'll see what I mean. So, necrotic energy bursts from you on a 1. Each creature within 30 feet, including your party members, takes 1d10 necrotic damage, which you just roll once, and you gain temporary hit points equal to the sum of the necrotic energy or the necrotic damage dealt to those creatures. So your player characters that are with this barbarian will get their energy sapped. So will the enemies, but so will your other fellow player characters. So this is where a lot of these effects are going to be very important to actually talk with your player characters, not only the person playing this Path of the Wild Soul, but also your other player characters, to see if they're going to be okay with a character possibly putting them at a disadvantage right off the top of a combat when the barbarian rages. So that's the first one. D8 number 2, not a big deal. We're going to be teleporting 20 feet to an occupied space, basically having the ability to kind of blink into different areas on the map. Not too crazy, not too out of the ordinary or anything like that. We're going to conjure 1d4 tangible spirits that look like flumps in unoccupied spaces within 30 feet. Each one then immediately flies 30 feet in a random direction, and at the end of your turn, these spirits explode, and each creature within 5 feet of one or more of them must succeed on a dex save or take force damage. So again, could affect your party characters, could affect the monsters, but will not affect the barbarian typically because they're just going to go in a random direction. Number 4, arcane energy shrouds around you. Until your rage ends, you get a +2 bonus to the AC. Whenever a creature within 10 feet of you hits with an attack, they're going to take force damage equal to your constitution modifier. Great benefit for you. Nothing wrong there. Plant life grows around you until your rage ends. Everything around you is difficult terrain within 10 feet. Okay, fine, good. Okay with that, that's an interesting one. Arcane energy taps in the minds of those around you. Each creature must succeed on a wisdom save, and you get a glimpse of the creature's thoughts, learning how it plans to attack you. As a result, the creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against you until the start of your next turn. Alright, that's an interesting one. It only lasts for a round, so it is what it is. Some of these other ones only last for a round, which is fine, but it's just very interesting how it kind of works out. Shadows weave around the weapon of your choice you're holding until your rage ends. You deal psychic damage instead of the typical bludgeoning, splashing, or piercing damage, and it gains the light and thrown properties of a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60. If you drop the weapon, it dissipates and reappears in your hand at the end of your turn, which is really cool. It gives you kind of a weird weapon of returning, which is kind of fun. And then we got a beam of brilliant light from your chest. It's going to, each creature in the line, con save, 2d8 radiant damage, or be blinded at the end of your next turn. So again, this could technically hit your other fellow player characters. So the one thing I do not like, and this is a philosophical thing, now you can disagree with me all you want, I feel that if there's going to be negative effects that happen as a result of wild magic surge, like the sorcerer, there's some of those that happen in there, they should be impacting the player character who is playing the character, not specifically only the ones around him. I have a problem specifically with number 1, because it greatly puts a disadvantage of all the other player characters except for the barbarian. The barbarian gets a huge boost, which depending on your situation, if your players are competitive or whatever the case may be, some of them may not like the fact that one of their party members is going to take hit points from them and put them possibly at a disadvantage of let's say a dragon's breath weapon attack or something like that could just put them out right off the bat because the barbarian sapped enough HP to put them in a difficult spot. You see what I'm kind of getting at? You want to really make sure we're talking to our player characters, but otherwise, the kind of flavor of this barbarian, I love a lot. It's got some very interesting different effects, which are going to be kind of fun to play with. So now, soapbox over. I'm done talking about the Wild Surge. Like I said, I do feel like that if there's going to be a random effect, I do feel like one of them should be negative to the barbarian, not just, there seems to be 3 or 4 of them that could negatively affect your party members, but not the barbarian himself. So I guess in lieu of affecting the barbarian himself, it could affect the whole party, and then the barbarians might be in a bad spot as far as the party is made up, but then it's still kind of a weird benefit for it's a little bit wishy-washy. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Now let's jump into magic reserves. At 6th level, we can channel the magic surging around us into other creatures. As an action, we can touch a creature and roll a d4. The creature recovers an expended spell slot of a level equal to the number rolled. If the creature you touch can't recover a spell slot of that level, they instead gain temporary hit points. And then you take force damage equal to 5 times the number rolled. Okay. And then when you reach 14th level, you increase this die to a d6. So it's a very interesting, I guess this is the negative part for the barbarian, I guess, but I don't know what the, I don't see how this, I can see this coming into play in certain specific situations, but I also kind of feel like this is obviously can be used in and out of combat, but I also feel like it's something that if I was playing a Wild Soul, I probably wouldn't use that much because of the fact, I mean, force damage equal to 5 times the number rolled, I mean, 20 damage, depending on the level you're at, I mean, 6th level, 20 damage, still not going to be, it's going to be a pretty big chunk at that level. As we get to level 14, it increases to a d6. 6 times 5 is going to be 30. Probably not going to, I mean, it's still going to be a pretty big chunk if we roll the highest number on the die. But at the same time, I mean, recovering a 6th level spell slot at level 14, may make or break your game. I don't see it's very situational, so I don't like the idea of that. Versus if we go back to the Path of the Berserker, we have this mindless rage that, again, it's kind of situational, which that's one thing about these barbarians that I find very interesting about their level 6 ability. But they don't have the ability, they can't be charmed or frightened while they're raging. And if they are charmed or frightened, when we enter a rage, it goes away. So I like that as it's kind of a sort of passive, but there's not really a negative to having that effect or that ability. And then we're going to come back down here again. We're going to come down to this Arcane Rebuke. Magic crackling within your soul lashes out, and each creature, when a creature forces you to make a saving throw while you're raging, you can use a reaction to deal force damage to that creature. Interesting. Yeah, I guess the kind of wild magic that's coursing within you, you get a little bit of control over it, and you can lash out as a reaction. We go back to the Berserker. We have this Intimidating Presence. This one is one of those very specific situations once again for the Intimidating Presence, but it's okay, like, depending on what you're kind of looking to use it for. But I don't know if it's going to be a great one for you when we look at that. I don't want to look at these Path of the Depths or the Path of the Beast, because those ones, again, are not going to be official. And then if we look back down here at the Chaotic Fury, you become a Wellspring of Magic. While you're raging as a bonus action, you can reroll on the Magic Surge table, replacing your current effect with a new one. So again, dipping into that Magic Surge kind of flavor here with this Chaotic Fury. If we come back to the Berserker again, as just a kind of example, we get the Retaliation. When we take damage, we can use our reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature. So depending on your kind of situation, I mean, there's some very similar kind of effects between the Wild Soul and the Berserker with the reaction damage and stuff like that. But I do find that this Magic Reserves, if this is an attempt to balance out this Wild Surge kind of advantages that this Barbarian's getting, I don't know if it really does the effect they're looking for. I think this could have been better served up here and then maybe taking something in here and bringing it down here instead. I don't know. Like, I would love to see this piece maybe come down here with this Beam of Light or something like that. I don't know, or maybe utilizing this Shadow Weapon maybe comes down here into this Magic Reserves and this one jumps back up here. I don't know if I like the idea of a random effect, most of these random effects only being positive, with the one negative, I guess the best way you can say it, being a very specific situation where you're going to deal a lot of damage to yourself, but otherwise this is a very null ability. I don't know how much I like that. Now, if we look at it in relation to the class features of the regular Barbarian, as we're kind of going through, we get our Rage, Armor of Defense, Reckless Attack, Danger Sense. We get our Primal Path, which we already talked about, Ability Score Improvements, Extra Attack, Fast Movement, Feral Instinct, Brutal Critical. A lot of these at the beginning of 9th level, when you make a weapon attack, when you can roll one additional weapon damage die for extra damage on a critical with a melee attack. A lot of these Wild Soul features aren't melee attacks, they're arcane energy just jumping out, so that doesn't really give us a whole lot to play with, whereas the Path of Berserker does give us a little bit more to kind of bite on a little bit. Relentless Rage, which is fine. You instead drop to 1 hit point if you can make a DC 10 con save while you're raging instead of just falling down. Brutal Critical gets better, again, on melee attacks. Persistent Rage gets a little bit better than it was before. And then Brutal Critical again improves. Indomitable Might is great. And then Primal Champion, your strength scores can go up a little bit more. So I don't see a lot of synergy either with this Path of the Wild Soul. And now maybe this is the way they tried to balance it, where there's not a ton of synergy between the Wild Soul Barbarian and the actual class itself. But if that's the case, then I think, in my opinion, and like I said, this is a breakdown, but a little bit of opinion pieces. We're kind of talking through this, and we'll actually jump out of this view because I think we've proved our point with kind of what's going on here. I know I've still talked with the logo on, but I think we proved our point. I think the Wild Soul is a great idea in concept. The flavor that can be played on with the Barbarian being touched by some sort of magic from the Feywild or some other kind of realm that's enabled him to have this kind of magical randomness and ability, or maybe some kind of weird bloodline inside that he's kind of acquired, or some sort of maybe he's been impacted by a deal by a hag or some sort of blood magic. There's a lot of kind of plays on the Wild Soul that you can play with here. I just don't know if this particular rendition of it is either A, effective in what it's trying to do, effective as a choice as a barbarian itself. And I also feel like there's a lot of negatives for having one in your party unless your party members are okay with dealing with the fact that there's going to be some friendly fire in the campaign. Which under normal circumstances for a lot of classes, there isn't, unless it's a choice where I'm going to place a fireball in a place if I'm a wizard, and yeah, I might hit one of my friends, but I have to take that risk because of XYZ. Okay, that's fine. And that can be a nice little conversation with players at the table. The fact that, oh crap, I rolled a 1, everybody give me part of your HP pool. If you roll a really high number, especially at low levels, which I saw a few times when player characters have like 15, like only have like 18, 20 cut something health, then they're basically cut in half. And if they're already if they end up in melee with somebody and they get hit once, they're already down. So, but then the barbarian can last forever. So it's one of those things too where it very much will bolster that barbarian quite a bit, but it's going to be at the cost of the other players. So, and depending on your play group, they may not enjoy that. It may not be something that they're going to have fun with. So that's my kind of thoughts on the Path of the Berserker, or not Path of the Berserker, Path of the Wild Soul Barbarian specifically. Now, like I said, if you guys disagree with me or you have any other questions about this Path of the Wild Soul Barbarian, Unearthed Arcana, leave comments down in that comment section below. I also, again, live stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, except for this Wednesday, just because of the anniversary. I'm so happy. Again, that is going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, normally starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Usually runs till midnight. So, with that being said, I want to thank you guys. If you made it to the end of the video, please like, subscribe, all the cool YouTube stuff that we're supposed to talk about and all that kind of jazz. And until next time, happy gaming.